Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of 28 Days of Blackness. My name is Rasheed Chambers. I am the founder and CEO of eCode Learning Center. Today we're going to talk about urban renewal and its negative yet constant impacts on Black and Brown communities, with a specific focus on its urban planner and master builder, Robert Moses. Urban renewal is very important because it lays down the foundation of understanding what happens to disenfranchised inner city communities when there are projects put in place without the thought of those communities. Urban renewal initiatives swept through this country in the 50s and 60s. It was created for the sole purpose of updating cities to a more modernized look. And in doing so, large marginalized communities of people of color were negatively impacted. This is mainly because of the practices that were put in place by Robert Moses. Robert Moses came into prominence shortly after the Great Deal and all the initiatives that came with rebuilding the country after 2 world wars. He was the only person with a blueprint. So because he was the only person with a blueprint, he actually ended up being one of the super front runners for actually recreating the cities the way that we see them now. If you ever paid attention to the marvel of the Tri-Barrel Bridge, that is his work, and all of the interconnected interstates in New York City in general. He would lay down a foundation for modernizing cities throughout the country. But there's a dark, sinister tale to it. For one, a lot of people didn't understand about Robert Moss was that he was pretty much an overt racist. He was actually coined of calling people of color and minorities animals on multiple occasions, and the interstates in which he's built has negatively impacted communities through practices called eminent domain. And because he was not an elected official, he was actually able to do these and implement these processes throughout decades. People of color who just lived in New York City and other places around the country were targeted for urban renewal. After a lengthy stint in New York City becoming the master builder, Robert Moses would also go to Baltimore, where he would do the same exact thing. This time, not only impacting areas considered to be urban blights, he would also do this in affluent neighborhoods like Harlem Park. Harlem Park was a center of Black progress and ingenuity, and he determined that to be an area deemed for repavement and created interstate there as well. Areas that are normally not protected by the government, specifically during this time, were also targeted. In California, he set the tone for other developers to do the same exact thing. So if you wanted an interstate or a highway to be built, chances are it was going to happen over an urban blight or deemed a neighborhood that was in social decay or actual decay. And these things happened all over the country and were funded by our country. Maybe not with the intent of actually destroying these communities of color, but when we don't have regulations in play, bias tends to often be the outcome. Outcome for urban renewal was mixed. On one hand, you actually do have the development of cities all across and our infrastructure is changing. And on the other hand, we have communities of color which are being disbanded and separated permanently. If it doesn't happen because of destruction like Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Rosewood in Florida, then it's going to happen due to policy. And that's what we're seeing here. And that's why it's imperative that you speak up when you see certain things. Go to your council meetings, become an active member of what's going on in your communities, because little do you know, you could be negatively impacted by not having a voice at the table. With eCode Learning Center, we actually created an environment for kids to learn STEM, and it's for the sole purpose of making sure that we can uplift communities that have been marginalized and disenfranchised. We identify STEM deserts and make sure that we're actually preparing children in those areas for a brighter future so that they can participate in the social, economic changes in their community as well. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Be a voice, make sure that your voice is being heard, and make sure that it's being screamed from the top of the mountain. Thank you for watching this episode of 28 Days of Blackness.